Well, good morning, familia. This is Sid Fernandez, president of NAREP Naples. And once again, guys, welcome to Conversation with Cafecito. If you have not been able to check out episodes 1 and 2, we would implore you guys to do so. This show is meant for not just entrepreneurs, but those potential entrepreneurs who are out there in the wings, in the darkness, who are just looking for that strike of inspiration. Today is actually a little bit more personal, not only for obviously our community, but to myself as we bring in the owner of Chifles Chips. And for those, it's kind of an enigma because I feel like not many people understand the name, but you guys have made Chifles a part of your life. If you've been seeing bags like this, not so much the sticks, but if you've seen the bag like this with this wonderful logo, you've actually created to a tradition that continues to live on. And today I have the humble ability to bring on a cousin of mine who's also the owner, and gets to speak about the history of Chifles, the history of his family, how they've overcome so many different parts of their life to make the number one plantain chip in the country. And without further ado, guys, I bring on Mr. Tony Rivas Jr. Hey, what's up, Primo? How are you, man?
How's it going, buddy? How's it going, Sid?
Oh, just here con cafecito, and I get to have it with you. Uh,
Always.
absolutely. You got to keep to the traditions and the branding. So, bro, I'm gonna kick it off, man. Obviously, we've had the conversation of trying to get you guys on for a bit and being able to share your story. I think first and foremost, let's allow people to know who you are and the family. So, tell us a little about your journey, as well as maybe your father's journey into the states, as well as the company.
Okay. Well, as you said, my name is Tony Rivas. Me and my father have the same name. Can you hear me fine?
I can hear you just fine. I think everyone too.
All right. Me and my father have the same name. Our journeys are a little different. Obviously, he was Cuban exile, came here at the age of 14, and basically came on his own. Came with his family, came with his cousin, and stayed with family members here, starting in, I think it was like 68 or 69. And so when he first started, when he first came to the States, he was, working jobs at the age of 14 to help provide and take money back to Cuba for his family. And then finally, at the age of 19, he started working for a little distributorship called Borges Distributors. Now, Borges Distributors was essentially built to start distributing Chifles down here in South Florida. The brand Chifles started in 63 in Tampa. Coincidentally enough, it was started by an Ecuadorian gentleman and his wife who had spent time in Cuba, and they were inspired by the street vendors in Cuba selling plantain chips. So they went to Tampa, Florida, and started Chifles in 63. My dad in 73 started working for this, like I told you, this little distributorship that started selling Chifles. He worked in that distributorship, and that's what basically put me through school. I went to an all boys private school in Miami. I mean, we were definitely lower middle class, but my parents made all the necessary sacrifices to put me into a good school, Belen Jesuit, and so that was a big part of my early, like, formative years, and watching my father work. And so Chifles was always a part of us, but it wasn't until later on in 2010 when I went to work with my dad that I started to really hatch out the plan of as to how it was going to be, from just being a distributorship to figuring out how we could do something with Chifles as a brand and possibly acquire it.
So it's really interesting because if I remember right, you actually were working in a completely different sector, right? Like you didn't just, once you kind of graduated college, did you go straight into Chifles, or did you kind of go off and do your thing and then find your way back?
Right. Well, my degree's in engineering, so I didn't go to school thinking that I was gonna end up working with my father or working with Chifles. I worked for Raytheon in Texas, for a missile defense contractor in Texas for 4 years. Then I came down to Miami and I started working as a pharmaceutical rep. So I did that for 4 years. So all those things I feel like really helped me move into the space that would later become managing Borges Distributors and then running Chifles. So I had the team aspect of it that I got from pharmaceutical reps, and the sales aspect, as well as the team and management aspect that I got from being an engineer in in Texas.
It's pretty insane to see like kind of encompassed, and obviously I think a lot of people will connect with the fact that you guys are lower middle class. I think a lot of us went through the same exact thing. Same immigrant parents trying to fend for a buck, trying to show us something different, give us the opportunity to become entrepreneurs, to achieve the American dream. And for you guys, obviously going from the distribution part and growing up, as you saw it as a kid, what was like your daily life? Like you as a kid, seeing it from your eyes, how did you see your father? Obviously hardworking, but growing, like how did that affect you, and how did that continue to mold you as the entrepreneur and the owner that you are today?
Through today, my father's hard work was always front and center in my life. It was everything to me. Part of what pushed me to succeed was always looking at what my father, the opportunities that my father had given me, and believed in us and put everything that he had to help us succeed. So his hard work was always there front and center. I mean, one quick story is, as a kid, we used to, the way I got my allowance, other kids would cut grass or take out the trash. My father would wake up at 5:30 in the morning. He would drive me to Hialeah to go unload a truck of Chifles at his distribution. At that point, he already owned the distribution. He didn't have to do that. There was people there that were going to be unloading the trucks. But I'm talking, I was in 5th, 6th grade. And it was something that I cherish and I look forward to, because my summers were spent working, touching Chifles bags, fixing sections. So hard work, and it's part of the fabric of my life. It's all I've really known from that standpoint. It's just been part from the get-go. It's always been there. It's been a constant theme throughout my life, and I think it's happened in this journey.
It's cool. It's awesome that you say that, because I think that we live in a time period where I believe our generation is a little bit more lax with our kids. I think we want a little bit more progressiveness and understanding, maybe to social things. But I think that fabric that you mentioned of that hard work, that drive, that passion for something greater, it's awesome that you're talking about that, because I think a lot of people fear instilling that in our kids, waking them up at 5:30, maybe a little bit archaic. But I think that you mentioned, I think it's what molds you into the entrepreneur you are today. I'm going to go back to how you guys mentioned about Chifles and how he started off with distribution. As he grew in this business, how would you say the importance of overcoming what he overcame, whether it was through communism and leaving the country in which he knew at a young age, as well as a story that we'll probably get to as I think the big molding point once you guys took over the company. But talk to us about how important those moments in his life, and maybe to your life, of overcoming and understanding really created the brand that you guys have today.
You know what? When it comes to my father, you're going to hear it over and over again. It's just hard work. It's just, you're going to get knocked down. Things aren't always going to go your way. Then there's going to be opportunities at some point. Like we'll talk about later. It's taking those opportunities when they do come your way, while overcoming some of the challenges that you're going to without fail. It's in any business, you're always going to have challenges. You're always going to have problems, and not letting those problems overcome your path and what you're trying to achieve. And then when those opportunities come, making sure you capitalize on those opportunities. And so it was like in any other household. You had problems at work, but he was an entrepreneur. He had a small business. So it was, how do we get past that? And like I said, I was always immersed in it. As soon as I could understand about the business, I was asking questions. I was figuring out, Dad, how can you be more efficient? I mean, these were conversations that I was saying when I was 14, 15 years old, and now I still ask myself those same questions. I still talk to him about those same questions today.
It's a fascinating story, and it's funny how I never, as I was young, they always talk to us about, oh yeah, he does chips, and you never really realized the magnitude of what it was. But I remember everything that was synonymous with your father was just the amount of the hard work that he had, the determination that he had, the ability of coming home and still doing homework, waking up very early in the morning. and that continuous drive to be bigger and to be better. And I think it always came down to you guys, showing you guys what you can do and accomplish. I think it's fantastic. Let's segue into to actual Chifles. So I believe Chifles started in 1963, right? And you had
Correct.
touched upon it was the Argudo family, right? I think it was
Yeah.
Segundo. I remember right, Peggy, right? Segundo and Peggy.
Yeah.
Talk
Correct.
to us if you know anything about the relationship and how that relationship was molded through the years that your father was in. How did that relationship materialize?
Well, from my father's perspective, I mean, I'm not going to say it was another set of parents, but there was a kinship there. There was a love and a respect there because they they met my father when he was 19 years old and started in this little distribution company, starting to sell these little plantain chips down in Miami. And in the process, to the point, I'll fast forward to when when Peggy's son passed away, Rick Argudo. My father eulogized him at his funeral. So it was a tight relationship, and you worked. It was more than a work relationship. It was 40 years, and that's why I believe that we were afforded the opportunity to take over this brand, acquire this brand, and carry this legacy. I mean, trust me, there was much bigger fish knocking on that door and ready to scoop that up and make it part of the portfolio, like you see all the time now, brands being gobbled up by big companies. But she understood, Miss Argudo understood that what we wanted to do was carry that legacy forward and continue the legacy of Chifles and preserve it and grow it and take it to that next level.
I do love the fact, and I think I have the utmost respect for that family for having allowed, I think, a family that was integrated into the DNA of what Chifles was and grew Chifles to what it's become, and having kept it. I think that there's a beauty in the authenticity, and again, just keeping that DNA as firm as possible. And I think anybody who understands the story and listens to it fully, I think will start to appreciate the chips more and more because of the history of it. That's actually really, really cool. Now, you get to the point in 2017, and the son passes away, and there's a conversation that's being had now between Peggy, who is the wife of the original owner, and your father. Tell us how that maybe materialized. If you know the story, how did that conversation happen for your father to take over Chifles?
Okay. Well, it was a set of circumstances. It wasn't one conversation. It was, me going to my father and saying, you know, we need to preserve this brand. Right now, we're just, we're a middleman. We don't, there's nothing that is tangibly ours, and we know who's going to do best by this brand. But understandably so, Miss Argudo wasn't, you typically don't sell a brand to one of your distributors. You sell it to a bigger company that's going to do a lot more with it, and expand it and do different things. And so we had to do some convincing. We had to sell her on the idea that we were going to take that brand to the next level. And, if it wasn't for my father, I could have put together the most beautiful business plan and, all these and ideations and what we wanted to do and how we were going to expand and how we were going to go into new areas and pull out our distribution. But none of that mattered to Ms. Argudo. What she cared was preserving the legacy that her and her husband created and her family had lived off for over 60 years. So for my father, it was more just about letting her know that she could rest. I mean, when we acquired the company, she was 94 years old. So she could rest knowing that it was in good hands and that the path forward for Chifles was a bright one. So it wasn't about numbers, and that acquisition was less about numbers. It was more about the heartfelt relationship that she had with my father and entrusting her life's work, her family's life's work to us.
It's funny. I think now, as people start to listen to the story and really start to hear how it materialized, I think the slogan is, I think it's a family. I think a family. It's a family story in every bag. And I
Correct.
think now you realize that it's really only touched two families' hands, it becomes a little bit more real, because obviously you see models, you see slogans, and it's really conglomerates that control it. But really, the essence of this company has really only touched two families, and the fact that you continue that tradition it makes it just that much more real. Now, after the acquisition, with everything you guys have gone through, everything your father has fought for, everything you strive for, all of a sudden something hits just a couple of months afterwards. Tell us about the I think the pivot point for your company, and I think the pivot point probably in your mindset that nothing's going to stop you guys. Tell us a little bit about the biggest trial I think of your company's life, honestly.
Right. Well, we acquired the brand in July of 2017. At that point, my wife was due to give birth 2 weeks after the closing, and from the week that we closed, for the 4 months leading up to the big event, I would jump on a plane on Monday mornings, come back on Thursdays. My wife was dealing with a toddler and with a newborn, but it was all for the dream of being able to take Chifles to the next level. We finally had something. We finally had the ability to preserve the legacy. And then 4 months to the day after we bought the company, there was a factory fire and we lost everything. It burned for like 17 hours. It was completely destroyed. We had that was our plan A, B, and C at that point. And it was a pivotal moment where I believe that maybe other brands wouldn't have survived it. Or, would at that point just said, look, at this point, we don't have the resources to move forward. And somebody would have gobbled up the brand and acquired us at that point. But, through the help of first one of our competitors that started co-packing for us, it kind of gave us a little breathing room. Yeah, I mean, those relationships of somebody, it's about community. It's another Hispanic-owned company, and it's about helping each other out. And they could have put their foot on our neck and made it really tough on us, but instead they opened up their arms and started co-packing for us, for a short while we got back on our feet. And we started to rethink how we did the business, and that ended up moving us in a different direction where we feel today we have better products, better quality, more innovation, because we changed the whole business plan. But we were almost thrust into it. We had to jump and then figure out if the parachute worked. Unfortunately, it did.
Let me ask you guys this: if you can kind of give us just a little bit of a sneak peek of some of the conversations as the fire had just completed. Now there's all this uncertainty. I'm sure there's anxiety, a lot of sleepless nights. Give us a little bit of insight on those conversations. Whether it was with your father, whether it was other confidants in business. What were the type of conversations during the aftermath once the ashes really laid down? What was the thought process there for you guys?
Well, the first thought didn't come from a business partner. It came from my wife. It's one of the more touching parts of the story for me. It's still, I choke up when I think about it today, because it was the fire happened. It was November 11th. My birthday was November 14th. We had just bought the brand. I mean, I'm wearing a Chifles shirt today, but if you see me, I'm either wearing a Chifles hat. I always have the gear on. I'm always representing. This is everything to us. And so we had driven to Tampa to see what had happened in the fire. And when I come back, there's sludge, everything on my shoes were absolutely ruined. And she had bought me these gray Nike sneakers and personalized them and written Chifles in red on the back of them. And I walked in the house, I couldn't even look at them. I was so just distraught at what had happened. And I was like, we lost everything. We just lost it. We have nothing. And she said the most truest and beautiful and heartfelt thing, which is, you didn't buy that factory. You bought that brand. You bought that story. You bought that legacy. You didn't lose that in the fire. You still have that. And it was the beginning of the clarity for me as to seeing there was another way. There was potentially a better way to do things. And what we had bought was not the tangible assets, so to speak. What that building, we bought the story, we bought the brand, we bought the logo, and just put, like I had done the rest of my life, and like my father had taught me, and like I had seen him do. We put our head down and got to work, and we worked our asses off to get back to where we are today.
I was reading the New Times story last night, obviously prepping for today, and it talks about the sneaker story, and it talks about how it goes into the three very important things: the family, the legacy, and the heritage. And I think a lot of us forget that legacy and heritage isn't made by something that can be constructed and deconstructed. It really lives in us, and our legacy really lives on with who we are and how we carry ourselves and the imprint that we leave back. It's really an impactful story because I think a lot of times now we get beat up when we're imperfect. We get beat up when something bad happens. But it's those moments that are really going to prep us for the future. And in a very short amount of time, really, because again, your factory went down to ashes. In very short time, you guys get ranked by, I think it was IRI Worldwide, which until yesterday, I probably didn't have any clue what it was. You guys were ranked #1 plantain chip in the country. Tell me about the feeling when you guys got that phone call or that email stating that. And what type of reminiscing did you have? Like, what were the emotions that you went through when you hear this news?
It's something that me and my dad, I still pinch myself. We'll sit there and have conversations. That moment when they called us, I already knew what was coming. I felt it, I saw it, but when you finally see it in front of you, it's, that's when you start to, I never stop to look back. I don't do a lot of reminiscing. I feel like I'm just getting started in my career. I don't take time to rest. I just keep pushing forward. And part of what I'm learning to do now is kind of live in the moment a little more and enjoy the journey. I've always been about just putting my nose to the grindstone and pushing forward. But that, I remember that as a moment of just, wow, look at what we did, Dad, and look at how fast we did it. And those moments of pride make all those sleepless nights, that hard work, those tough decisions, having to, from one day to the next, having to pick up everything and start figuring out a new way to do a business. When, I think the big stress behind that was the fact that my father believed in me and pushed his whole life's work. At the age of 63, 64, he put everything on the line for Chifles. And so failure wasn't an option. And so that moment when you find out that you're the #1 plantain chip, you did it. I mean, literally, the dust hadn't settled on what had happened from the fire, and we had pushed forward and done that. It was just like an affirmation of all the hard work, and something that saying of hard work pays off. There are those moments where you really say, wow, it does. So
I think the big pieces of the story that we've literally gone through, to me, are like obviously the perseverance, just going through everything from the early stages of your life through the time that they've grown. He grew in the company to where you guys are today. But the other side of it is the community part. And I think you mentioned something that I just want to touch on really, really quick. The fact that they didn't press your neck and they realized that it's much bigger than just the money. It's much bigger than controlling the big piece of the pie when it comes to the industry that you're in. I think it's a testament to the true sense of community, to be able to uplift somebody, and that there's still enough for all of us to eat. Instead of it being someone eats steak, the other one eats a salad, it's everyone can eat at the same table as long as we're doing it the right way. It really is awesome, because that was a piece that I never knew about. So thank you for sharing that, man. So you guys are #1 now. What is the future hold for Chifles?
We want to continue to innovate, and we feel that this is just the beginning. There's so many people that still don't know what a plantain is, or maybe they know what a plantain is, or maybe they've had a plantain chip here and there, but we want to continue to show the versatility of the plantain. We want to continue to push the envelope, do things differently. You held up something like the plantain sticks. We continue to innovate. We're coming out with different flavors, different offerings. There's just so much to do, and part of it is the innovation, and part of it is taking what we learned from our other business in the distribution side and getting it in front of people, because we feel confident that if we get a bag of our plantain chips in front of you, we get a bag of Chifles in front of you, you're gonna become addicted to it, and you're gonna become a part of the family. So for us, it's continuing to push forward, push the envelope, innovate, and continue to get into more retailers throughout the country. And who knows down the line outside of the US, but for now it's pushing forward here in the States.
And I just want that to be an important piece for all those entrepreneurs out there that have run businesses, and you're seeing yourself climb. Even when you're at the top, you have to continue being innovative, because the moment that you become complacent in your position, someone will leapfrog you. It's important to always have an open mind. I'm glad that you touched upon that. The last thing I always ask everyone that comes on the show, for those entrepreneurs or those people out there that maybe they've been beat down by life and their dreams are becoming a little bit more and more distant, and maybe they're afraid to dream, give them something that can reignite that passion again and that belief that they can become much bigger than what they are today.
You know, for me, I keep harking back on the comment about hard work. These entrepreneurs just keep pushing, keep trying, keep moving forward. You're going to get a lot of people that say, you know, this is too big for you, or, you know, that's not going to work out. And, you know, you see it all the time, but you have to listen to yourself. You have to listen to that voice within and just continue to fight for what you think is yours and what you think you deserve. As long as you're working hard on those opportunities, because they will come your way, you capitalize on those opportunities, you make your own luck, you'll come out on the other side on top. And it's to me, it's that simple. It's, you know, there's sometimes there are these amazing ideas, but if there's not a driving force, if there's not that hard work behind it, they just fall flat. So, you know, keep looking for that idea that's going to push you forward. But more importantly than that idea is that hard work and that work ethic. That's what's going to get you there.
I love it, man. I love it. I know you guys had just moved into your brand new space during all this craziness, and I'm looking forward to finding when you guys can do the grand opening without the fear of masks and social distancing. So I won't be social distancing from your chips. So I'm just letting you know I haven't at all. So it's been showing in my waistline. But listen, Tony. Listen, thank you so much for being on today. It means a lot, and obviously your story, I think, will inspire others to achieve something greater that they know is within. They just don't believe it. Bro, I look forward to talking again soon, brother.
Thanks, Ed. It was a pleasure. Take care, Primo.
Thank you, man. Bye, Baba. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you guys again for being here with us. Again, these are real stories from real people, from real entrepreneurs, and the vision is, guys, is that it's gonna create a fire, whether it's one or whether it's 100. We believe that there are people out there that are meant to leave a legacy. They're meant to leave a footprint in this world, and every single one of us has that ability. So I hope you guys took something away from today. Thank you guys again for tuning in. And before I go, I'm going to say something that is my opinion and what we're currently going through. There's been social issues for so many years, and it's time for each and every one of us to be a leader in our own world. It's time for us to be leaders, and you don't have to take to the streets. You don't have to take to Capitol Hill, but what it starts with is a conversation. A conversation not to point fingers, but for understanding. We need to start washing away the content that brings us anger, that brings us frustration, that brings us prejudices. And it's time for us to have the real talks, the tough ones. And I promise you that when you have those tough talks and we open up everything and we start to unlayer ourselves, you're going to find something really, really beautiful. You're going to find that the community is just more than the color of our skin. It's us, the human being. My hope is that you guys continue to feed each other's passions, and not each other's fears. May you guys continue to be good to one another, because again, a world of togetherness is a beautiful world. From all of us here at Now Rep Naples, thank you guys so much again for being a part of it, and we look forward to sharing more stories in the future. Be safe, guys. Take care.